Good afternoon, everyone. iTech welcomes all the participants for today's National Distance Learning Seminar series. Today's topic is pediatric counseling, and speaker is Dr. Kalpana Datta. Dr. Kalpana Datta is a professor of pediatrics and director of Pediatric Center of Excellence, Medical College, Kolkata. She is a national and state trainer for pediatric HIV and a recognized examiner for undergraduate and postgraduate courses. She has several publications in national and international journals. We welcome you, ma'am, for today's NDLS session. I would request Dr. Kalpana now to kindly take over the session.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Divya, for a kind introduction. And today I'll be talking on pediatric counseling in this setup. So I'll share my screen now. Am I audible clearly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My slides are visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. And today's topic is pediatric counseling. So when we'll talk about the pediatric counseling, we cannot think of the pediatric patient as a separate unit. Always it is a mother and the baby as a combined unit. So when we are talking about the pediatric counseling, that means it has a two parts. We have to counsel the mother or the caregiver, not only the mother or the first and second caregiver, about the needs and the requirements and challenges and issues of the pediatric patient. And we have to counsel the pediatric patient himself or herself. So there are two parts of the pediatric counseling. So I'll be discussing and will give importance to in the following headings: the needs and modes of counseling given to the parents and caregivers on HIV exposed or infected children, general skills that promote effective counseling. So counselors should have some skill and a special skill to deal with the pediatric patient. Counseling issues on the breastfeeding and infant and young child feeding, counseling issues on the treatment adherence in child living with HIV, social and psychological issues specific to children, and appropriate disclosure process in the children. Care and support of the children living with HIV is a very difficult, a different challenge compared to those in the adults. So it is a challenging issue when you're dealing with the pediatrics and is entirely different from the adult. Both the child client and his or her caregivers must be supported through sensitive and caring counseling. We have to be very sensitive, very caring, very tactful, uh, and always be friendly with the clients, both with the mother and the pediatric patients, to give the appropriate informations. Children throws up special challenges include abilities to understand the HIV disease and treatment, because the maturity level may vary. The children means from 0 to 19. You can think of them. That means the pediatric patients, infants, growing child, and toddlers and adolescents, a huge group of patients. So you have to understand the maturity level of the patient to cope with the side effects. So depending on their maturity and their bringing up their growth and development, whether they're able to cope with the side effects or not, that we have to understand and we have to counsel accordingly. And it is a lifelong treatment that to be counseled. Issues of confidentiality and stigma and discrimination in their immediate environment. And this is very important for the pediatric patients to maintain the confidentiality. And though the stigma and discrimination, it depends upon the maturity level, because it is not a problem for the younger age group, but the confidentiality is a problem, and the older age group stigma and discrimination is more problematic. Counseling needs are also likely to change as the child grows older. So the needs of the child progress through various stages of the child development and demands adaptation to these changing needs during counseling. Because from zero, even before birth, there's just growth and development starts from the day of conception. So after birth, when you're giving the counseling, it will vary according to the growth and development. So whatever you counsel in the infants, you may not counsel in the 3 years old child. Whatever counseling in a toddlers 1 to 3 years, it may not be feasible, applicable for older children. So your counseling patterns, the topics, the types, everything will go on changing according to the child's development and the maturity level and their demands. So what is pediatric counseling? Is the children are a unique and not just a tiny adults. We can't say these are half of the adults. Whatever we're saying to the adults, we'll say in the smaller word that is not. Whatever the medicine is given in the adult, you can do, you'll think, oh, half of the adult medicine is a pediatric medicine. It's not that. So it is a unique human life. Their physical, psychosocial, spiritual needs are different, which needs different responses than that given to the adults. Counseling with children is different when they are orphaned by either single or both parents, or they have lost their parents or their caregivers. Sometimes there might be they are staying in the some homes and the orphanages. So then again the counseling pattern and the topic and the content will be changed according to the situation. Counseling children is more effective in interactive methodologies such as drawing, storytelling, puppetry, or play, small play that will be more effective because that will give a creative environment so that they can understand the problem and then they can follow it. It's a challenging job. It differs from counseling from adult and age appropriate counseling of the children should be given. Counseling it's a repetition of the slide. Sorry. Counseling refers to a confidential dialogue between a, now what is counseling? Someone has raised hand. Oh, three participants have raised hands. Hello?
Participants, we can take up the questions at the end of the session. So maybe you can wait.
Or write in the chat box. No?
Yes, yes.
So what is counseling? Counseling is a refers to a confidential dialogue between a person and the care provider so that we can let them understand what is the problem and make them comfortable to choose the option, and they can cope with the stress, make personal decisions related to HIV/AIDS so that they, they can take a right decision. It's our aim, our capability to make them take the right decision. So this is the counseling. The counseling process includes an evaluation of the disease status, facilitation, the treatment adherence, removing the myths and false beliefs and misconceptions, and then help them to take the decision. Principles of good counseling. What are the principles to maintain a good counseling? Establishing the helping relationship with the children and the youth. So first, for the first and foremost important for the counseling to make a rapport with the children or adolescent, and that the good relationship, and that will grow gradually from one day to day. Not in the very first day you will expect the relationship will be very good. It's not like that. You have to build that rapport gradually with the client, helping them tell their stories, listening attentively. So always don't show any haste and don't show any hurriness. Always give enough time, be patient, be have a good skill of listening, giving them correct and appropriate information, age appropriate information. Rather, we say so correct but age appropriate information. We won't give a wrong information or we won't lie to them, helping them make informed decisions, helping them identify and build upon their strengths, how much they're capable, what is his capability to accept. We have to understand and help them to choose that capability. Helping them to develop positive attitudes towards life. So it's a very important aspect of counseling to give them the some hints or some information regarding the healthy life skills. But there are some barriers while counseling with the children. It will be the language barrier. So as we cater very different parts of the children from different parts of the region, so they might come in the different society, might have a different language, or sometimes the development of language is delayed or understanding is delayed, maturity is not there. So the language barriers when there is a common language, when an adult use non-age appropriate language with the child. So we have to be very childish when we are dealing with the child, and we have to use those words which can be understood by the children. There may be some cultural barriers, sometimes due to poor skills, lack of active listening, recipient problems that may cause the barrier for counseling. Knowledge and wrong message or wrong information is also, so you have to be very equipped with the appropriate knowledge, and you have to be confident about the subject so that you can counsel the children. Is an adult's failure to come to the child's level. So it is very important. We have to come to the child's level. We have to think that what the child is thinking about us and about the disease, about the environment, about her or his need. And then in that way, we have to counsel to the children. So counseling and patient's education are the same. Though the education is a part of counseling, but counseling is not whole part of the education. It assists the understanding of the health related information. So we're educating about the disease and other health issues, gives valuable information about the disease and treatment, and by educating the person, we can make them confident about their self need or self care. While counseling, it helps the identify feelings, risk behaviors, readiness to change the behavior. So we'll give the information, and same time we'll help them to take the decision so that they can change their behaviors and needs according to the disease, or guide them to the caregiver, the children or the caregivers to establish a plan, facilitates the clear thinking and decision making. So the counseling is a part of the education, is a part of the counseling. Along with the education, will help them to make them take the decision, and it includes, as I said, the patient's education also. So it should be child-centered counseling. We have to think what environment we should create so that the child will love to learn, love to listen. So it should be a child-centered, a child-oriented. It may be child prepared by the children. So requires a trusted relationship, that is the rapport building, to be established between the child, caregiver, and the counselor. So we have to develop the skill to make a rapport building, like we have to address the child by their name so that they think, oh, the counselor or the doctor or the staff care providers are known to, he knows me, he knows my name, so I am familiar to him. So he'll feel less uncomfortable, and he'll be good in making the relationship. Focus on the child's need, what he likes, what he dislikes, whether he is in fearful, or in a stress or in anxiety. It's more common with the adolescents when they are in the adolescent phase. They are having some challenges for their developmental issues, and they don't like to be in these centers or the caregiver. They don't like to come to the care providers. They might come against their will because of the parents has sent the patient to the center, so they have lots of problems. It is tailored to the child's development. So near that counseling may be tailored according to the child's development. So no two children are same. We have to counsel each and every. Maybe the issues are same, but the dealing and the tolerating or accepting that issue is different for different child. So we have to be child specific, and you have to give the child specific counseling. Promotes the child's potentials and abilities. We have to learn by regular process of that what is the potentiality of the child, what is the ability of the child, and you have to help them to increase that potentiality and ability, so that he or she can utilize for our own well-being, and always build the self-esteem for the children. Respect the child's identity and emotion, and respect the children also. And so always give a respect to the each and every human being. Even the children, they need their respect. So always respect the children, and always give the confidentiality about his identity, and always feel the emotion, because in the early adolescent, in 10 to 14 years of age, they are very much emotional, and in 14 to 17 they are they're very much impulsive. So we are in early age, they are very much egocentric. So we have to respect their emotions, and we have to keep in our mind that what are the developmental phase, where he is, what is the developmental question of that particular child, and we have to behave in that way. Protects the best interest of the child, including the right to participate in the decisions that affect them. Non-discriminating. Confidentiality of the information to be there. Always involve the child and the child's caregiver. So when you're counseling the children, always take the caregiver with them so that they can feel comfortable. They won't be fearful and in anxiety or stress. And you can make a story, or you can ask them to draw. Suppose you can ask them to draw a good man and a bad man, or a one devil. So the man is there and the devil is there. You can ask the draw, if he is good in drawing and all. You can help there, as I said, to increase the abilities and potentialities there. If there's a potentiality of drawing, you can take the help of drawing. So ask them to say that a good man will going to kill this bad man, this the devil. So draw. So that will create then that will help in building the knowledge about the HIV, that if you take the medicine and the good nutrition, you will be this a healthy man, good man. If and this is the devil, where you have to kill that devil by your capability. So you can depict the pictures on drawings and the act and play, and by which they can understand between the wrong and what is right and what is good and what is bad. Always involve the child and the child's caregiver while giving the counseling. So this is a group activity in our center where the babies are drawing as given a topic. You can give a topic. Oh, how to clean your environment, how to clean your house safe, how to keep yourself safe. What are the healthy habits you draw, whatever you think, and you can discuss of the drawing by seeing the pictures and all. You can do that. This is also the one of the activity, and we also do the you can say the poems and the rhymes and the song which can give some strength and some information regarding the disease. So issues related to the counseling in child, why we do not do the counseling separately for the pediatric patient along with the caregivers. It is the what is the importance of counseling, because that will help to decision to take the HIV testing, and that can be facilitated. If they know the need, what is the need of testing, then they will do that, allow to test their blood. Second, HIV is a life-threatening and lifelong disease. So you have to counsel in such a way. If there's and I'll discuss about the disclosures, the stigma, discrimination step by step. So you have to make them realize when they come to know they are having some disease. So it is not a one-time disease like a flu, one viral fever, or diarrhea, and all. It is a lifelong disease. So you have to counsel in such a way that they can digest, they can tolerate the word. Like if gradually where you have some disease, some deficiency, for that you are taking medicine, they'll go on asking why I'm taking the medicine, why my parents are taking medicine. I have seen my friend, I asked my friend, he's not taking the medicine but I'm taking medicine. If young enough, they will go on asking these things. I'm not going to take the medicine if you won't tell me. So then you can say, if baby is quite young, like 5 to 6 years or 10 and 8 years, you can say you have some deficiency and you are taking for to fulfill that deficiency. Suppose your friend is having some, he can have a low vision, that he is wearing the spectacles. Someone is wearing the hearing aid, he is having a vision defect in the vision, hearing. Similarly, you have some defect, for that you are taking the medicine. So don't disclose, don't utter any word that you are having disease or some virus or germs. That is, when he's a bit older, then you can say you have some infection, for that you need a medicine. Then again, when he understand the disease, and he can you can understand the patient, your client, that is a child client, can maintain the confidentiality, and can have that much of confident that he can be open about the HIV disease. Then only consider term the HIV, that is usually we do in above 11 to 12 years. So of course you have to see the maturity level by discussing with them different aspects, because the maturity level is not same for each and every child. So you have to judge the maturity level, understand level of understanding, and level of tolerance, because tolerance also vary from child to child. One challenge may be very easily tolerated by one of the child, and that challenge may be very life-threatening and very harmful for other child. I give you some just as a simple example. Suppose one child failed in some exam, and especially it is in the early childhood, in the 10 to 12, 14 years, and someone may be, okay, I failed because I couldn't study or I was sick and all, and he will tolerate that the news, that bad news, and he will go on, okay, I'll overcome, I'll study more, and I'll pass in the next exam. But some other child might be, oh, I failed, how can I show my face to my parents, the friends, I must die, I should not live, and they will try to do the suicide or self-harm. So this is a level of tolerance. So we have to judge the level of tolerance, and we have to build up these life skill and the positive thinking. So physical, psychological, sociological implication of HIV to be discussed gradually, and then the how to deal with the stigma and discrimination as related to HIV. Then prevention of HIV transmission, feeding issues is very important from the very beginning of the birth to adolescent group. Improve how to improve the quality of life and positive living, that can be built only by the good counseling. and ensure the treatment adherence. What is the importance of treatment? Why do you need the treatment? What is the importance of adherence? That to be counseled, and that will give a good, good, adherence, and so that we can have a good health and better future for their children. So issues related to what are the issues we'll discuss in counseling? Feeding issues like breastfeeding, when whether to be given or not, because it is that is, I will discuss a few with the breastfeeding. Then the IYCF. IYCF is infant and young child feeding practices, because all of us will give the advice of the breastfeeding, but after 6 months we forget. We should not forget that after 6 months there's breast milk is not sufficient. You have to give the complementary feeding from the outside. And what should be the complementary feeding? It's very important to discuss about all those things, because otherwise there'll be the wrong feeding practice, and baby won't die of HIV, but they will die of diarrhea, malnutrition, pneumonia, and other diseases. Issues related to growth and development, because especially in the young adults and adolescents, because of they are having HIV, sometimes it delays the growth. There's a failure to thrive, and there's a development is also delayed. The children of HIV infected children usually having delayed puberty and delayed menarche. So that to be dealt with the counseling procedures. Then of course the immunization is one of the important aspect for having good HIV follow up, because immunization can prevent many diseases. So we can prevent them from different opportunistic infections. So that will help. So we have to give importance on the immunization counseling. What is the need of immunization and how you will get the immunization. So the counselors may not be so confident about the immunization. You just talk the topic, you need immunization, and go to the doctor and take the advice, and it's a doctor's responsibility to age specific immunization to be given and to be discussed with the parents and the children, of course. The prevention of infection, how to prevent some opportunistic infection, that measures to be discussed with the in the process of counseling. Then of course it is about personal hygiene and safety. Always in all cases, otherwise there will be lots of infections because of the poor hygiene and unsafe practice, and that should be counseled during the course. And consent for testing children, as per our law, consent can be given by those attain the age of 18 years. So 18 and more, we have to take the permission from the consent from the adolescent. But if less than 18 years, then the legal guardian can give the consent. And you have to counsel before the test and after the test, so that they can be empowered about the disease. So a level of counseling in the ART center, provider initiate counseling. That means provider who will initiate the counseling about the HIV testing, and what is the importance of counseling. The pre-test counseling is very important, because that is the part of counseling where they will give the consent. So if you're confident enough and have a good capability of counseling, then the person will give the consent for testing. So pre-testing counseling is very important, and the post-test counseling is as important as the pre-test counseling. Again, if it's turned to be positive, then what are the things to be done, where to go, and how to deal with this disease, and what is the treatment options available, where is available, and all those counseling to be given. Ensure use of effective treatment facility. Disease prevention, how to prevent the disease and other complications. Positive living, always counsel to towards the positive thinking, positive attitude, and positive living by the good healthy life skills. And ERT counseling, when they are diagnosed as a HIV positive, pre-ERT counseling to be done. Then under treatment preparedness, different investigations according to the need of the child, and because of the treatment like CD4 by CD4 and other investigation according to the drugs to be used, or other complications babies having, like a malnutrition, pneumonia, diarrhea. What are the other complications babies having? You have to investigate according to the signs and symptoms of the patient. For that you need the counseling. Then adherence and disclosures, again ERT counseling regarding the treatment issue supports, ensure follow-up. If your counseling is good enough and the effective enough, they will come for their own. uh, and we want have to ensure the follow up. They will come if they love the way you are counseling. So return and follow up will be good. And of course, when they are having stage 3 or 4, that is very much debilitated disease, then palliative treatment counseling is very important. And for the parents and or the dying patients, or the parents of the dying patients, it's very important to counsel them how to deal with the palliative care at the end of the disease. And ERT counseling again providing the psychosocial and emotional support all the time. We have to give in the very beginning to the end. This is the part and the parcel of the counseling. The counseling of parents or the family members. The council held a collective decision for prevention of parent to mother, parent to mother or parent to parent child and transmission. So this is a collective decision because the mother only cannot take the decision. It's the spouse and the family members all together. So counseling should be with the spouse. Problem in the treatment adherence. If there's any problem, if you have to look for this, is very important. Making informed choice on the infant feedings, improving the outcome care through the ongoing counseling, planning the future pregnancy, and counseling the discordant couples. These are the counseling for the parents while they are coming for the kids. Nutritional counseling. So nutritional counseling of caretakers is essential for the maintenance of good nutritional status and nutritional rehabilitations. The mother and caretaker should be counseled about the need for additional food, dietary modifications required to meet the increased need, safe food preparation, safe food and water storage methods, and hygiene issues. Also to be included to the need to continue feeding during diarrhea, fever, and any other illness. So first thing is the breastfeeding counseling. So you have to counsel. So I'll start from the breastfeeding first day up to, then I'll come to the other feedings and what are the other topics which I've said here. I'll discuss a bit. So need for disconnect feeding for HIV exposed infants. The mother is HIV infected and there's a risk of passage of HIV to the infant through breast milk. So this is the thing we first say, but we should not say the bad thing first. First, you will counsel about what are the advantages of the breastfeeding. Sorry. What are the advantages of the breastfeeding? It is a rich in antibodies. You won't get this antibody, these live cells in any other milk, in any tin milk or any other food. So this is rich and there's lots of anti-infective factors, there's lots of proteins and nutrients and the minerals are there, which helps the baby's bonding with the mother or development, or it also helps in the neurodevelopment, cognitive development. So all these advantages to be explained during counseling process. Then after the end, you can say there is a chance of the passage of HIV to the infant through breast milk, but again there's a big but. If there's a viral load is low, then chances are very minimal. If you are taking the ART nicely with a good adherence for the long time, then the viral suppression, if viral suppression is there, and then the transmission is negligible. And you can give some example of the countries where it has been eliminated even after giving the breast milk. So we will teach them what are the maternal the factors which can increase the transmission. Though the most important is the viral load, because active maternal disease means high viral load, high viral load, infection acquired during breastfeeding, because there is no time to suppress the viral load. Breast conditions, if abscess, mastitis, sore nipple, that will increase them because there will be breach in the breast tissue and there will be bleeding, and that will increase the chance of transmission. If there's a oral thrust and oral ulcer, again there is breach in the baby's mouth, so there will be chance of transmission. So these things we explain. But if everything's okay, mother is taking ART for long, then the viral suppression is there, mother is doing well, and then the chances of transmission is negligible. During breastfeeding, factors during breastfeeding, as I said, mixed feeding, risk of acquiring HIV through breast milk is maximum in infants who receive mixed feeding. But if once and two top milk along with the breast milk, I'll say the recent guideline, because even the mixed feeding, you can continue the breastfeeding, because one feed of top feed or what two feed, even after that you can give the breastfeeding, because if virally mother is virally suppressed, taking ART for long, and the advantages of breastfeeding is supersede the chances of transmission of HIV infection through mixed feeding. So even after mixed, we can give the breastfeeding to continue and stop top feeding. So factor the risk for parent-to-child transmission breast milk is significantly reduced by concurrent ART intervention. So it is very important to say that counsel the parents that for your own health you have to take the ART and good adherence must be there, and for your kids' health also it's very important to adhere with the ART. And we have to give the ARV prophylaxis in time. That will also minimize the transmission. Chances is very negligible. So according to the guideline, WHO, infant receiving only breast milk, nothing else. So exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months. And what do you mean by exclusive breastfeeding? Exclusive breastfeeding means only breast milk. No other milk or supplements or pre-lactal pills or janam gutti or glucose water or chini water or all other things, except if they need some medications. Like we give vitamin D in newborn. So with breast milk, that also includes in the heading of exclusive breastfeeding. Then exclusively replacement feeding. Infant receive locally appropriate unmodified milk formula feeding. Breastfeeding is completely avoided, then it is called exclusively replacement feeding. But the current guideline and our motto is put on breast and take the breast milk and breast milk and breast milk. Because breast milk is the best milk. That's to be explained. As I said, benefits of exclusive breastfeeding contains all the nutrients for what is needed for the baby for the first 6 months. That's very important, and is a right amount in a right or optimum temperature. So baby needs whatever the temperature baby needs, it is there in the breast milk. But if you need the top milk, you have to prepare the the artificial milk. You have to bring the temperature down to the normal because it's a hot, so it will take time. That's chance, and in during preparation there may be chance of contaminations, and again the constituents of the top milk is not appropriate for the baby's gut. Breast milk is easy to digest, protects the baby from diarrhea, pneumonia, and other infections. As I said, that there's a lots of antibodies and live cells are there. It's readily available, does not require any preparation. There's an optimum temperature. Breastfeeding helps to develop mother-infant bonding. Also, it has been seen the who have given the breast milk, these babies are having good relation and the good family relations when they are grow up. So this is very important. Exclusive breastfeeding helps the mother to recover from the childbirth also. So breastfeeding also help not only the babies, it also help the mother for placental contraction, expulsion, and the prevention of postpartum hemorrhage. And again, the evolution of the uterus come to normal, and also helps for the family planning. But it is not a, of course, it is not 100% protection for family planning. They should take the other method for childbirth. This also protects from the getting pregnant too soon, but it is not 100%. Don't rely only on that. You should take the barrier methods also. Benefits of replacement feeding is only that it can free of HIV, and other family member can prepare and give the baby. What is the risk? So risk will be discussed at the end of the counseling topic. Risk of acquiring HIV infection as well as baby's breastfeed. Risk of replacement feeding, a lot of risk. It's a risk to there is a lot of burden also. There will be economical burden, social burden, emotional burden. Lots of burdens are there. Lots of problems are there. Expense of obtaining appropriate milk, water, fuel, and cleaning utensils cost very much, 5 to 6,000 in a month. So it will be very difficult to provide only for the food items. You have to spend so much of money. So there may be economical burden to the family, to the member, to the family, to the society, and to the country. Babies are at high risk of malnutrition, diarrhea, pneumonia, and other infections because there's no protective antibodies. Mother may be a question about no, not breastfeeding, and her baby, if she's not giving breastfeeding, the neighbors, the relatives will ask why you're not giving breastfeeding. So then she should give us some wrong, false explanation for not giving breastfeeding, and that should be sociological issues. Okay, if there are any queries, I'll be discussing at the end of my session. Found if it now we'll give the normal breastfeeding as we give the HIV negative babies. So even in the positive can continue the breastfeeding with the recent guideline going to come. Previously it was HIV positive, then you can continue to 24 months. If HIV negative, then you can give after 12 up to 12 months. But now it is said, as there's a good drug is there, mothers is virally suppressed. You can see we are having regular viral load, so we can see the viral load. If virally suppressed, then you can give, they continue the breastfeeding as long as like 2 years. But if parents wants to discontinue the breastfeeding after 6 months, because 6 months is exclusive breastfeeding is essential. After that, the breastfeeding is not sufficient to maintain the nutrient values for a growing child from 6 months onwards. For that, you need some complementary feeding. And that time, the parents might say they want to stop the breast milk now. So then you can gradually wean from the breast and increase the amount, complementary feeding amounts. And in a month's time, taking the consideration and the comfort level of the both the mother and the baby. So it is a gradual stop, not as immediately after 6 months sudden stop. That will create lots of problem both in the mother and the baby. HIV testing needs to be done even again our 6 weeks after cessation. So the day they stop giving breastfeeding, you have tested baby is negative. That does not mean baby is not infected, because window, we know the window period is 6 weeks. So again after 6 weeks of the stoppage of the breastfeeding, you have to test again to say baby is not infected. And you have to counsel continuously for supporting the mother so that she can feel confident to for the bringing up the child and giving the breastfeeding and other cares. Might need help disclosing her HIV status if there is she has not disclosed earlier. So you have to counsel the mother how to disclose. The disclosure is a very big issue in the pediatrics. For directive approach to the counseling, counselor makes a clear recommendation for feeding rather than simply presenting the different options. So it is the, you will say that it is the recommendation, how the breastfeeding is good, breastfeeding is allowed, or WHO said breastfeeding, give breastfeeding. NACO says, so you say the clear recommendations. Don't give an option whether you give the breastfeeding or replacement feeding, because as soon as they learn that there is a chances of HIV infection through breastfeeding, she will think, okay, I am suffering from long for the HIV again. I won't let my child to suffer from HIV for by the breastfeeding. So they will say, no, I am not going to give the breastfeeding. So that's why I'm telling the always encourage about the advantages and the viral suppression. Then in the end, you say, okay, chances are very less out. 1 in 100, the 100, if you give the 100 mothers giving the breastfeeding, only 1% the chance of getting infection. Focus on how she will carry out her decision rather than decision making. Continuous support for her decision for giving exclusive breastfeeding or replacement feeding. Specific time point during intercurrent illness of the baby and the mother. So it's very important if she gives the breastfeeding on the very first day you have counsel. So every month you have to boost up your counseling. You have to counseling. Last session I have already counseled about the breastfeeding. This time there's no need to discuss about the breastfeeding. That is not there. You have to counsel and you have to support. You have to encourage. You have to empower the mother each and every month when she comes for the medicine. So counseling is very important for each and every session. And not only the breastfeeding, sometimes mother thinks in the summer it's so hot, baby needs water. So they will, of their own, they will give some water during the summer season. You have to know sufficient water is there in your breast milk, and you don't need any extra water up to 6 months. If baby is passing 6 to 8 times urine, that means she is getting enough sufficient breast milk for her need. You don't need any extra. So that is to be voluntarily, that is a provided initiative counseling you have to say to the parents. And the other time, like suppose baby is suffering from fever or any other diarrhea, mother thinks because of the breast milk baby is passing stool. So you have to first differentiate between the breast milk stool or the infection related stool, and you have to counsel accordingly and encourage the mother to give repeated breastfeeding in case of diarrhea. Don't stop feeding during the diarrhea or any fever. So during intercurrent illness, the importance of breastfeeding is higher, and you will counsel about those points. The safe breastfeeding practice, mother should use dual protection to reinfection. Even she thinks that she is positive, she is taking all the precaution, but she should take the precaution like barrier method for reinfection or other STI that will cause the viral replication, and there may be high viral load and chances of transmission. So for that, you have to ask the mother to use the protection. avoid non-nutritive and comfort suckling. As sometimes in the non-HIV patient, they are giving non-nutritive suckling, especially in preterms for comfort. So you don't give any non-nutritive sucklings and comfort suckling. That will give nipple confusion, or others they will won't able like to take then breast milk and all. So there will be failure of breast milk given. So you always avoid non-nutritive suckling. Check for and treat oral thrush and sores in the child's mouth immediately. In each and every say month when they come, you always check the oral cavity and there is for whether there is sore or any oral candidiasis or not. And how to take the good care of the breast, recognize and promptly manage the conditions like mastitis, sore nipple, abscess. If they are, then you can ask the mother to feed him from another breast. Just a minute, excuse me. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It shows my net is poor, that's why I'm coming. So we'll teach about the counsel about the how to keep the good care of the breast, and if there's any problem, she can feed from the other breast, and when it will be cured up, he can give she can give the other breastfeeding the from the both the breast. That will be counsels from the center. Mothers should be ensured to continue iron and calcium in the first 6 months of breastfeeding. This I often found everyone is to forget to ask the mother, because what happens, I'm not blaming any the obstetricians and gynecologists, because they write very nicely, take this antibiotic for 5 days, this methargine or some tablet for stoppage of the bleeding for 5 days. And I have, it's my own experience. I have seen the discharge certificate of the mother, and at the end they write, take calcium tablet to continue, iron tablet to continue. They write nicely, but what the parents think, this iron calcium tablet and calcium tablet to be taken for 5 days only. Or if it's provided from the hospital, especially in the government sector hospital, so they give one strip of calcium, one strip of iron. I have seen they have taken only one, only that strip only. They didn't buy or didn't come for the iron and calcium the next time. So they think, oh, this is sufficient as other antibiotic for 5 days, methadone or other tablet for 5 days. So I'll continue this iron and calcium for one strip. So this is very important. Each and every visit, you must ask whether mother's giving, taking iron and calcium, because we want to give the breastfeeding which is rich in nutrients. We know iron is low in breast milk, so we ask the mother to take a high iron diet and iron supplementation, even in a pregnancy also, folic acid and iron, and after birth, delivery, there's iron and calcium to be continued up to 6 months. So this is a very important issue. Everyone should ask to the mother whether she is continuing the iron calcium or not. Then replacement feeding, we won't encourage the replacement feeding, because lots of complications, lots of problems are there. We'll highlight the problems very much, then we'll see the what are the criteria for taking the replacement feeding. So that to be explained very nicely before telling you, okay, you can take the replacement feeding. Like safe water, from where you are drawing the water, what is the source of water, what is the source of sanitation, whether they are having toilet in the house or not, whether they are taking in the filtered water or not. So the drinking water source is very important. Mother and caregivers can reliably afford, whether they can afford the feeding, because when they think there is a chances of, when they learn from the counselor that their chances of transmission is there in from the breast milk, they will say, I'll give the top feeding. No, no, they won't listen anything. They'll say, no, 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 I'll give the replacement feeding. Then you explain what are the problems for replacement feeding. You have to prepare it with a clean but hand, with the clean water and clean utensils. Then you have to bring it down to normal temperature. You have to feed with the clean spoon and katori spoon. You can't feed with the bottle, because the working mothers are for saving time and all, or the household chores, busy in other chores. They say they will give in a breast bottle. So bottle feeding is not at all allowed. So you have to feed it with the katori and spoon. That will create infection, chances of transmission of infection. Baby will have a repeated diarrhea, will lose weight. They will further immunosuppress. They will have a malnutrition, and they will die of pneumonia and other disease. That's things to be highlighted. Then of course, the burden of the family, you have to buy the dibba, because one dibba will last for 5 to 7 days if you give. That you need the 4 5 is very costly nowadays tin food. So they, if they have other source of food, milk, they can ask, they can give the cow's milk, we can get the buffalo milk, goat's milk. So we will say these are the deficient, the different minerals in the different acid. They are cow's milk for the cow cups, not for your kid. Buffalo milk is for their kids, and the goat's milk is for the kids, not for your kid, human life. So human milk is like for the human newborns. These things were highlighted. Then the preparation, they will listen, they won't listen anything, they will say, no, I'll give the top feed. Then they won't able to afford for after 7 days. What will they do? They will dilute the milk and go on adding water because it is the white color remains, so they think they are giving in the uh, milk. And they will imagine their baby will be like a chubby chick baby, which is imprinted on the dibba on advertisement. So you will expect that their baby will be like a healthy plumpy child, but they are giving the diluted milk that will create lots of infection, malnutrition, and diarrhea. So that's thing, those economical burdens to be highlighted. Then the mother carrier can maybe seek for 6 months exclusive replacement bed, they can afford it. For that, the family must be supportive, the grandmothers and the other spouse. A mother and caregiver can access the healthcare that offers comprehensive child health service. If there's any sickness, immediately they can go to the nearby health centers available or not. All those things to be taken care of before advising the replacement feeding. Now, the infancy, young child feeding. It is still a common recommendation for appropriate feeding for newborn and then children less than 2 years of age. It includes, as I said, early initiation breastfeeding. So within 1 hour, it's as early as a half an hour you can do. And so as early as possible after birth, because the counseling to be started before pregnancy. And when they conceive, then you have to counsel about the feeding options and other options, so they can be mentally prepared and they can take a right decision. So if the patient comes in directly in labor, it is very difficult situation, because it's still herself, she is in a stress and strain, and that time you're asking whether you give the, you want to give the breastfeeding or not. And this is not a set time to counsel, so you have to prepare the parents and the other caregivers beforehand, so that you can give the early initiation breastfeeding can be done exclusive, because we know the early cues. So early, why early initiation, I want to say a few words, because in early after birth first hours, all the reflexes are very active in the newborn. After that it bit slows down. So if they put on the on breast in early, within a 1 hour, they can suck it, suck the breast very strongly. If you won't allow to suck the breast within 1 hour, then the sucking reflex a bit slows down. So it is our aim to give the early initiation breastfeeding, and then continue the breastfeeding exclusively, as I explained what do you mean by exclusive breastfeeding, for 6 months. Then this is the point, time of introduction of complementary food. We don't usually don't give the advice of complementary feed. We say, oh, now ab se aap baar ka khana khila sakte ho. We all say all this, but no, this is not a counseling. You have to counsel what food you want, can give, what should be the constituency, what is the consistency, what should be the amount, and what should be the frequency. The four things is very important: constituent, consistency, amount, and frequency is very important. How much calorie? 6 to 7 months, 1 to 2, 3 then 7 to 9 months, half calorie. 9 to 12 months, three-fourth of calorie, then 1 to 2 years, you have a full calorie, 3 to 5 times in a day. So consistency, what should be? It should be semi-solid. It's very easy to say solid, semi-solid, liquid, but to explain the parents, you have to, they won't know what is semi-solid. So you'll say, if I'll drop it, it won't drop it immediately. The gradual dropping from the spoon, thickness is so thick that it will take time to fall. That is semi-solid. So you have to practically explain these things to the mother. What food item you can give, uh, that will depend upon the what are the taking the cultural background and the social background of the family. It's very important. Then it should be even the complementary feeding should be continued, even the in case of diarrhea, in case of fever, in case of pneumonia. You don't stop giving food. Then continue breastfeeding for 2 years or beyond as they wish, because if they are in good ART and the babies was taken prophylaxis and the exclusive breastfeeding given and all the nutrition profile in the portion is good, so they can have a negligible chance of getting infection and they can continue the breastfeeding for 2 years. Age appropriate complement feeding for children, as I said, explain, with along with the continue the breastfeeding. But if they don't want to continue the breastfeeding after 6 months, you can give the top milk. But usually we have now we have increasing incidence of cow milk protein allergy. So there may be a cow milk protein allergy. It is better to avoid up to 1 year the cow's milk. Active feeding for children during and after illness, that's to be emphasized. So there is nutshell, whatever I've already said, there's 69. It's a 2 to 3 plus breastfeeding. Start with thick porridgeable mashed food, 90 to 3 to 4 times, 13 to 1 to 2 years, 3 to 4 months of the breastfeeding. And in between this meal, you can give the snacks in the form of chiku, ripe papaya, or ripe banana. And the fruit just to be preferably avoided for first 1 year. Then gradually you have to increase the consistency, like in 9 to 12 months mashed food, then a family food chopped or mashed, so that there is development of biting, and there will be development of teeth. It will help in the eruption of teeth and the biting activity. And the amount is also 200, half katura, then 3/4 katura, and then full katura. Then the counseling. So in the counseling, again, now we come to the treatment, HIV treatment preparedness. You have to prepare the child and the caregiver for the initiation of treatment. The assist, advise, arrange, and agree them. The treatment preparedness may require more than one counseling sessions. And as I say, we in adult after 2 counseling start the treatment, but in pediatrics it's not like that. You need repeated counseling before you start the treatment. You may need 3 to 4 sessions of counseling before starting the treatment. So assess the treatment preparedness, how much they prepare. If the child is older enough, how much he or she is prepared for taking the medicine. As the child's and caregivers both preparedness should be assessed. And child's and caregivers knowledge and understanding, how much they realize about the HIV and AIDS, what is the importance of treatment, what is the importance of adherence, that to be assessed during counseling. Because it is a lifelong treatment, it's not a cure, no cure. So you won't say there's no cure at the very beginning, and they'll be disheartened and they'll vote, and I'll die anyway. So what is the use of taking medicine? I'll stop taking medicine, although. So we discussing words we'll say in the end. So I will say, like in other diseases, there are lots of diseases which need lifelong treatment, like some arthritis, some diabetes, hypertension, many more diseases are there, like endocrine disease. You need a hormonal replacement therapy for lifelong. So this is one type of infection where you need the lifelong treatment. Then you say there's no cure. So you have to tailor your counseling methods according to the importance. Then, of course, you say the side effects of treatment. Again, after listening the side effects, they may be afraid of in any time in your life. They'll say, yes, I had fever. So did you take the paracetamol? They'll say, yes, I have taken the paracetamol for my fever. So do you know the paracetamol are also having some side effect? So each and every drug is having. So did you have any problem while taking the paracetamol? She or he might say yes, might say no. Maximum they'll say no. So there's no. Similarly, there is also chances of your having. It might have a side effect, may not have, but these are the possibilities. So in that way, you have to counsel the child and their caregivers. Then treatment preparedness disclose that is the child and acceptance, how much they're in a mood of acceptance. What should be the disclosure? What is the way of disclosure? Social support system. What is the social support system? The family support system. Potential barriers to adherence, emotional stability, family situation, living conditions, financial status, food habits, daily routines, everything to be taken in consideration while counseling about the treatment. Because if you say you have to take the medicine at night, and or in the morning and evening, usually give them big dose of that. Some drugs are there. So in morning, and there's no time for taking the medicine. She goes to school at 7 or get up at 6:30 when she will take the medicine in the morning. So you have to adjust in that way. So you have to know his daily routine, school time, what is the food habit, family situation, everything you have to consider while giving the counseling. Completeness of relevant medical reports, test report and all. Then you have to assist, for assist planning for treatment and adherence. Disclosure of HIV status if required. So you have to assist when to disclose. This is a very big question, when to disclose the HIV status to the kid. By whom it will be disclosed? By the caregiver providers, healthcare providers, or by the caregivers, parents, by whom it will be disclosed. How much to disclose and what to disclose. It's very important. Developing a treatment and adherence plan. So you have to help to how you manage your treatment, how you adhere the treatment plan. So you have to give some ifs and buts and options, different options to increase the adherence plans. Like daily, you in the morning you brush your teeth. Similarly, you have to take the medicine morning and daily in the morning. In the evening, you do the you if you're a student, you daily you do the homework. Can't you want to do the homework in the evening? Yes, I'll do the homework in the evening. Similarly, you will take the medicine in the evening also. Daily, you have to take. So in that way, in the mood of play, all the time you have to play interactive and all. So you have to take the medicine. You can depict some pictures about the adherence, like someone is taking daily medicine in morning and is very healthy, playful, always active. He is taking part in the games, but who is not taking medicine regularly, is very thin, sick, and he is watching from the side, others playing. So these will give an impression that he should take the medicine daily and adherence must be good. Planning for follow-up and visit. Then advice. So again, I said advice, treatment, and its implications. About the advice about the side effects, lifelong treatment. There's no cure. So how to deal with this? Explain the ART prescribe and how the treatment works. Importance of adherence to the ART. What are the opportunistic infection can happen, and what are the source, how to prevent that, and what are the prophylactic treatment to be taken. Importance of regular follow up, why they should come, and if like in children, they are always in school or in the exam. In the adolescent, it's a big issue for coming in the center for picking up the pills, because they are very much having pre-engaged with their activities like education, extracurricular activities, and other coachings, then trainings, and all those things. So there you can arrange the counseling day after their holiday or according their suitability. So you have to consider how to do the regular follow-up of the children and adolescents. Home-based care. So you'll the advice what are the home-based care to be given, treatment for opportunistic infections, and of course their side effects. What should be diet, nutrition, how hygiene, good nutrition, why you need the extra diet. As diet is very important, because with the growing phase, even without HIV infection, they need extra diet because of the rapid growing phase, especially they're converting from the childhood to the adolescent. So there's a rapid growth and you need an extra diet. Moreover, when you are HIV infected, you need extra calories. So you have to explain what is the need of calorie. If there's only positive, then 10% is symptomatic, 30%, as you know. And if there's a severe disease, then it needs 100% replacement or addition of nutrition. So what should be the diet? And diet should be rich in vitamins, minerals, protein, carbohydrate, balanced diet, vegetables, the seasonal fruits. What is the importance of taking vitamins and minerals? All these things to be explained in the picture-based um, uh, counseling materials. And then you have to explain about the nutrition, hygiene, what is the importance of hygiene, how to keep you safe, what are the methods to clean yourself, like the nails. You can sometimes you may check the nails. Let me see your nails. This is my nail. Show me your nails. And so we see this dots are there or not. In that way, you can on the play mood, you can explain the diet, nutrition, and hygiene. The investigations and referrals, you have to make them where to go, how they will investigate it, and where to refer in time. So in this, the counselor's role to arrange these things. So in counseling, when you go to the doctor, you go to this for this, you have to do these investigations, and you have to arrange the facility. Medical investigation before treatment, there's lots of investigation according, as I said, CD4, other blood tests, and of course there are some additional tests depending on the complications or opportunistic infections baby is suffering from. Referrals to the other agencies within and outside the hospitals, and that to be channelized. It is an emergency. So, as I said, it's a lifelong disease. It can kill the person if they won't take the ART. But if you won't take the ART today, you're going to die tomorrow. It's not that. Like in pneumonia, diarrhea, you have to start the treatment immediately. Otherwise, there'll be respiratory distress and all. In diarrhea, there will be dehydration and all. But in emergency, ART is not an emergency. Oh, prepare yourself, take care of your nutrition, hygiene, vaccinations, other investigations, and if other opportunistic infection, then control all those things, then you take the ART. So you have to prepare the child according to the need. Give the child and caregiver pre-treatment information and plan. Monitor the adherence of ART. When they are on ART, then see whether how they are taking. It's very important issue, cotrimoxazole as well as other medications, because if you ask, are you taking the medicine daily? They'll say yes. They'll never say no. But it's your skill to take it out whether they're taking the medicine daily or not. They say, okay, daily in the morning, at what time you're going in, what time you're getting up to bed, they're sick. What you're going to school, child might get when they're late, like 6:30, you are in hurry and getting ready for school, you might get late. Then they'll, from their own experience, then they'll say, yes, sometimes I might miss. So, but by increasing what, excuse me, what you can ask what is the adherence, and sometimes you will see they'll take the medicine, and then as soon as caregiver turns the face, he'll spit it out. So counsel the parents. You always see whether baby has swallowed the tablet or the syrup and whatever the medicine is there, and then you leave the child. And I've seen one patient who took the medicine, and within 10 to 15 minutes, he used to vomit, and for the lopinary pellets. So by inquiring, because she was came in failure in our session, we saw because of the adherence issues. So mother thought she has, because mother saw baby swallowed the pellets or the syrup, and but after 10 minutes, because 15 to 20, it needs 15 to 20 minutes to go down and to be absorbed. So before 15 minutes, if any baby vomits after taking medication, that means that medication is also out with the vomiters. That should be taken care of. So monitoring of the adherence is a very important issue, and that needs a expert and skill for the counselors. ART pill box, syrup bottles have to be assessed every visit. And this pill box and syrup bottles is very, disguising, because they might throw the tablets, might drop the syrup and come to the center. So by seeing the pill box and syrups is not giving the that you are the person is the 100% adherent. So you have to search, even the pill box is normal as required, and the syrup is finished as the dose is required. But even though you have to ask about the adherence issues. Check family support with the peer counselors and social workers. Understand the actual history of HIV infection in children, benefits, what is the benefits of treatment, what is the side effect of ART. This is the preparedness. Understand the importance of taking ART on time, every day, able to ensure treatment adherence, as I've said. Assume the primary responsibility. Who will give the medicine is very important. Seek the who is the primary, who will take the primary responsibility for dietary observe the tablet for the kid. So mother will say, sometimes I'll see, sometimes the father will say, father nahi wo to mummy dekh leti hai. So they have to be very sure. So who is watching, who is giving the medicine, who is taking the responsibility that baby has swallowed the tablet. Others are very difficult, because sometimes it happens baby will keep the tablet in the mouth for long, and as soon as mother turns or the caregiver turns on the other side, she will throw it out. That is a possibility. So it is very important to observe if the baby has swallowed the tablet or not. Store the ARV drugs appropriately, how to keep the drugs safe and all. Even it is very important for the drug also and for the baby also. Sometimes we have seen by mistake they took the, or by because the kids are very much in mood of exploring everything, they will take they open the syrup and take the whole the bottle and engulf. So you always keep away from the drugs from the baby's reach and in a safe place. Demonstrate the correct mixing, measuring of the prescribed ARV drugs, especially in the syrup form. What is the measuring, whether really they are taking 5 ml or not, or if you asked to take them 5 ml, whether they are taking 5 ml, what they understand by the 5 ml, what is the measuring spoon for my 5 ml, all those things to be discussed to know the adherence. So prepared counseling is very important. It should be begin as soon as possible before an initiation of ART, and should not put the child at risk of the disease progression or death through delaying in the initiation of ART. So it will not to delay to initiate the treatment, but it take time. When they are prepared, they are ready. All the investigation done, all opportunistic infection, severe malnutrition. If severe malnutrition there, then the first 7 days will take care of the treatment and nutritional therapy. Then you come upward, then you can start the treatment. It's important to alert the patient to the minor side effects of the ARV drugs like nausea, headache, abdominal discomfort. Otherwise, they might go to the other doctor and complain all those things without telling, disclosing their status, and they might give some symptomatic medicines and thought of, I can think of the gastric and GI infection and all, and they might give the medicines, and they might have a serious side effects. So these to be always explain what are the side effects might be possible, but that might overcome if you continue the drug for 7 days or more. Counseling team, children who do not know the HIV status should be explained why they need to take ART. So this is the important aspect of the child, means disclosure. How to disclose, that I'll explain. So first thing, what is the counseling and disclosure? It's very important. Age at which disclosure should be made. So when to disclose? As I said, is when child is able to understand 10 to 12 years. That does not mean below 10 years they are not going to ask. Even 5 to 6 they'll say, I'm not going to take the medicine. Why I'll take the medicine daily? My friend is not taking the medicine. So you have to explain that way. So that is a slight disclosing the disease, that you are having some problem. So you are taking the medicine. Some like someone takes when there's a vitamin deficiency, I'm taking the vitamin daily. I'm having this, so I'm taking the medicine. You are having this, so you are taking the medicine daily. Then when they're older enough, like 9 to 9 years, 7 to 9 years, then you can say that you have some viral infection. Don't utter the term HIV until and unless you are confident that baby is not going to disclose it to the others, and she can tolerate the news, and she can understand what is the meaning of the HIV. So what term HIV should be informed late. You say the viral infection, for that you need treatment. Some virus lasts for 7 days, some virus lasts for 14 days, some lasts for 3 months. It lasts for a long time. You may not say at that time it's lifelong, but it's long time. So you have to take the medicine daily. You might have to take the medicine lifelong. So in that way, then when you see the confidence level, maturity level is quite good, then can say, you are having this virus name is HIV. Then they will have a lots of queries. How I have gained this infection? What is the mode of transmission? What is the risk? So that means I might die, and all those things. There are lots of questions that to be explained very sensitively to the children. Who should tell the child about the status? So disclosure to be done by the usually by the parents. If parents said, okay, we are not not capable of disclosing it, please you disclose in front of us. So always take the parents along with the kid, and the support the counselors to disclose it. Short-term and long-term effect of disclosure. So we have to judge, assess what will be the consequence of the disclosure. If I'll say she is having HIV, she might be in depression. If especially in adolescent, might be depression, might run away the family, might commit suicide, might do the self-harm. So all those consequences we have to think before disclosing. Provide continuous psychosocial support is a very important issue before disclosing the HIV status. So HIV disclosure diagnosis to infected children is a complex process that presents a challenge to both the families and the healthcare providers. It's not an issue for the parents only, it is an issue for the healthcare providers, how to disclose and when to disclose. What are the obstacles to disclosure? Fear of regarding a decrease in the child's, that is, I said, he'll say, okay, then I no more want to leave, I'll die. Fear of regarding retaliation or discrimination based on the stigma. Parental guilt about parental transmission of HIV infection. Child's difficulty in keeping a secret. Sometimes child's difficulty in accepting that he has receive this infection from the parents. Then there may be a bad relation with the parents. They might behave badly. So these two things will be counseled beforehand. Parents' denial and difficulty confronting their own illness is very important. How can you say I'm positive, I'm responsible for my own kids' HIV status and all. So this is a very barriers for disclosure. So all these barriers to be overcome gradually, sympathetically, giving the psychosocial support. So disclosure, as I was said, there is their psychosocial maturity level, complexity, the family dynamics, and their clinical context. Exact diagnosis and prognosis of the disease. We won't say the wrong thing. We might say the partial thing, but we won't say the wrong. Child's ability to cope up with the knowledge of the life-threatening infections, child's circumstances when informing the school-going children, discrimination schools, whether they will disclose to the peers or not, and ask them not to disclose to the peers. So how can you cope up with their friends, communities, families, even a serious problem? So now I'll discuss a few cases, then I'll stop. So one evening, mother was giving a medicine to her 9-year-old child. Child was refusing to take the drug. On this, mother said, "You should not do this. You have to take the drug." After taking the medicine, child asked her mother, "Why I am always sick? Why do you have to take medicine daily?" See, in this situation, what would you do? So first, whether she is sick or not really, because she might be healthy, even though she is taking medicine. And why I'm always sick? Or she might say, "I'm not sick, but why I'm taking medicine?" So you have to explain that because she's a child, female child of 9 years old, and at that age 9 to 12 years they are very much egocentric and impulsive. So you have to take the socio and cognitive development of the child. You have to think whether she is mature enough to tolerate the disease. They'll say you have a viral disease. For that you need to suppress the virus, others virus will suppress you. You won't be able to go to school, you won't be able to go to dance class or whatever she is taking. If she is a swimmer, you won't be able to take swimming class. So that virus will be active and it will make you sick. But so you won't make you make the virus sick, so that you have to take the medicine. So the virus will be suppressed and you won't do any harm. Why do you have to take medicine daily? So we have to explain all those things. Should the child be told that he is sick according to the need? If he is really sick, like he is suffering fever, diarrhea, fever, recurrent weight loss, diarrhea, and all those, then he might say, "Oh, you're sick because of this. There is some viral infection. That virus making you sick. If you take the medicine, you'll be okay." If she is not sick, then say, "This virus is there in your body that you have to suppress and you have to take the medicine." Have you ever faced a similar situation? I think you have. Many times you have faced. If you've seen the pediatric patient, you will say face this type of situation many times. Second, a 10-year-old child goes to the hospital with the mother for her follow-up. The child is waiting outside the doctor's room. A person comes out of the doctor's room and says, "HIV positive child should go in." After returning home, the child asks her mother, "Do I have HIV?" What should the mother tell the child? Has any one of you ever faced such situation with the child? When do you think should the child be informed? She is a positive. So she's a 10 years old. First thing, this is a very wrong thing to call by the status of the. You always call by the name. Maybe A come to this room, you are requested by the doctor that way come, you have to say and with respect. So you child, her identity, and call her HIV status. First thing, that is the wrong thing the person has done. What should the mother tell the child? If she has done it, she has been exposed to the word, then you say, "Okay, and this is virus." Then you have to explain each and everything in a manner, in a phased manner, and you have to explain because the, the child, as that girl has already got HIV and she that she so you have cannot deny that. You cannot lie to the child. You have to explain the thing gradually and daily. You have to take the session for them, for your kids and the family members to be empowered that they will go on telling gradually what is this and how to tackle with this. 6-month-old ago, Master Ravi got admission in school. He's studying class 6, and now for first 1 month he's not keeping well and he's absent for many times. So one day school bus driver asked the Ravi's mother, "Why does he get sick aware what is his problem. In this situation, what should the mother to do? What do you think should be told to the driver? But why does he get sick often? Okay, he's sick often, he's taking medicine, he'll be okay. So you don't have to disclose all this to the driver. Why should you disclose the driver? Driver might change, another driver will come. So go on disclose the driver. There's no need to disclose the driver. Rather than say, okay, he is sick, he needs some medicine, so he's taking time. He'll be okay in few days time, and then he'll attend the school. So don't have to do all those things. So HIV disclosure status should be. Hello, am I audible?
Hello. Yes, ma'am.
I have a
Actually, we have
disconnect.
lost the connection. Yeah, in
Yeah,
between.
yeah.
Please
Okay, I
continue.
think like this is my last slide.
Okay, ma'am.
So I have to share this slide again because
Yes, ma'am. Please do.
uh, can't do it. Just stop sharing. Is it?
Okay, can we take up the questions now, ma'am? Then I
Yes,
can.
yes, yes. This is my last slide. Nothing. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll just share my screen. There are
Okay.
just 4 5 questions.
Yes, yes. So I will stop sharing.
Ma'am, can you see the questions?
Yes. What are the testing procedure and follow-up at PPTCT? Okay. What is the closing age for PPT? Acha, these are the questions I've already answered. Okay. The first one, what is the testing procedures for prevention of parent-to-child transmission? So you mean to say prevent-to-child transmission testing procedure? What do you mean to say? The HIV exposed baby? If you want to ask about the HIV exposed baby when to test, it is in the first we test at the 6 weeks of the earliest. At the 6 weeks of age, that is done by DNA PCR. We'll take the dry blood sampling in PPTCT center, and they will collect the blood and they'll do the DBS and they'll send it to the their hydrology center. And if it is positive, then you have to take another DBS for DNA PCR, and then positive. If positive, then you refer the patient or as the baby will be reactive. But if there is a negative test, first test is positive, second is negative, then third will be decisive. If third test is positive, then baby is reactive. Third test is negative, then you give the routine care of the other immunization, growth and development, nutrition, vaccination, all those things. And prophylaxis is to be started at 6 weeks. And again, they'll come at monthly visit. Then next test will be done after 6 months. And then at 12 months, then 18 months. Confirm it is by 18 months. But 6 months and 18 months, both are mandatory. So if you want to test the test anymore until and unless in the future baby is showing any signs and symptoms of HIV infection like severe failure to thrive. There's oral candidiasis, organomegaly, recurrent pneumonia, sepsis, then we can again test. But at that time, babies more than 18 months, you can do the antibody test. No, there's no need. I've already answered with this question. What is the role of counselor for counseling child or caregiver regarding schooling, education? How counselor can ensure the child does not drop out from the school? It's very important because when we are counseling a child, we have to give a comprehensive counseling. We won't be able. We were not going to focus on one topic. It should be comprehensive counseling. So child should be given counseling about the schooling, daily schooling, because you just counsel them a big few points about the schooling, whether you are going to school or not, how whether you are able to play with the friends and all those things will ask. And so that they will feel free to communicate what problem they are facing in their school, and that will prevent the dropout from the school. Next question. What is a non-nutritive comfort suckling? Yes, non-nutritive suckling sometimes they give without breastfeeding they give some sucking materials like kids and all. This is not given, especially it is given in a preterm babies, non-nutritive suckling, so that there's a maturation of some suckling power, and there's a maturation of the power of the lips and all. That is not given in a HIV positive babies. Then is it okay to give packet milk, Amul, mother dairy? As I said, always try to give the breast milk. First, breast milk, breast milk. It's a mom-made milk, we said. And the mother dairy is a man-made milk. So it is better to give mom-made milk, that is the best, breast milk is the best milk. And, excuse me. Packet milk, always you have a that won't contain the antibodies and other live cells. So if at all there's not possible, mother expired and some mother is too sick to give the breast milk and all, then you can give the milk. But in then this packet milks, again there is a tone milk, double pasteurized milk. If there's a tone milk and the tone milk means that the cream has been separated, it's low calorie milk. So you have to check that milk whether it is having a full cream or not, because with the cream the vitamins and calcium will be gone, so that will be less calorie and less minerals. That thing to be taken care of by prescribing the packet milk. Any other questions?
No further questions, ma'am. I think these are the only questions that we have received so far.
So we can
Yes, ma'am.
here.
We can very well close the session now. So thank you so much, ma'am, for this
Okay,
comprehensive
thank you,
session.
thank you.
Thanks to all the participants for patient listening. If there are still further questions, you can just write to us and we'll get them answered and we'll
Okay.
communicate to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you again for
Thank you.
facilitating the session.